How's it, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Cultured the Podcast. Uh, After posting the first podcast and people watching it, and I want to thank everybody for going out and watching it and seeing it through and giving me your thoughts and ideas on it all. I got a lot of positive feedback, and I got a lot of criticisms that are very constructive and is helping me out. A lot of it was that people not really understanding the whole concept of what I mean by culture when I'm talking about culture of the podcast and how it relates to what I'm talking about in these interviews. A lot of people are just like, well, I don't know the person you're talking to and I don't understand their culture very much because I don't know anything about them. So I want to start off by kind of defining what I mean by when I talk about culture. So when it comes to culture, there's different layers. There's your ethnicity, there's your nationality, there's local culture that you have in the city that you might grow up in, or the state that you grow up in, or other parts, other regions of the country that you might grow up in. I want to touch on all those bases because I feel like all those bases define the person that you are or the person you've become. They kind of help mold you in a sense. So I may be, like me personally, I'm of Cuban descent and Peruvian descent, and my grandfather on my mom's side was from Japan or Japanese. And my great-grandparents on my dad's side were from Spain. Our last name actually is a city in Spain, and that's where our name derives from. Having all that growing up kind of molded me in a certain way from a certain age. And then at a certain age, I became my own individual. I started assimilating to different cultures, making my own path and my own culture in the same sense. And moving around a lot as a kid, not really being in one place or in one school for more than a year or two really made me have to adapt to different cultures in different ways. You know, even small little social cultures like the school that I went to. One school was completely different from another school, so I had to kind of adapt to the people that were there and kind of get a better sense of who they were and how I can assimilate to them. Because if not, then you're just a weird kid sitting in the corner of the lunchroom eating by yourself. And no one wants to be that kid. So I had to learn to adapt and change the way I thought, the way I received information. I had to change the way I received information from people. You know, some people in some regions might have been really abrasive and really kind of crude in the way they talk to people, but that's just the culture there. And some might be like really easygoing and light-footed, and they don't really say a lot. So when you say things that are kind of harsh, they kind of get offended a lot. So that was something that I had to constantly adapt to the more I moved around and the more I tried to get used to it. So when it comes to things that we're seeing in I think in our country now, and just the way people and with social media and different things like that, I think people have really shied away from understanding who people are, understanding where people come from, and getting a good vibe for what it is that makes that person who they are. And even though you may not agree with what that person thinks or the way they think or their ideals on certain things, doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get along with that person. There may be 50, 60 different things that you guys do get along with and you guys do agree on, but people tend to let something trivial shadow that just because they don't really have a true understanding of why that person may think that way. They don't really kind of delve into what goes on or what went on in their life to make them form those opinions. So with these podcasts, I know a lot of people are kind of like, well, yeah, we don't know any of the people that you're interviewing. They're nobody to us. I kind of hope people that keep an open mind and realize that everybody has their own story. And I'm hoping to bring those stories to light. And if I bring those stories to light, hopefully everybody can get a better understanding for where this person comes from and why they might say the things they say. Maybe it'll give you a little bit more context and you can judge them a little less harsh because you understand that, well, it's part of their culture. It's kind of what they've grown into and what they've had growing up that's kind of molded them to have those kind of thoughts. So that being said, hopefully future podcasts kind of touch on that a little bit more and you guys get a little bit more context on what I'm trying to accomplish or just kind of what I'm trying to get out there, the kind of content I'm trying to put out there. And hopefully you guys keep liking, subscribing, and sharing. Until then, I'll see you guys. Shoots.